Welcome to Rev Up Your Business with Hilda Gann. We are now in season 5, and we've changed the name and the focus of the podcast. Rev Up Your Business is the podcast for small to medium-sized business owners, entrepreneurs, and HR professionals. Each week, we share tips, strategies, and trends on how you can build success in your business. I share my expertise as a people-centric leader in work culture and human resources. My guests share their expertise in human resources, marketing, sales, finance, IT, leadership, and the multiple facets that you need to take care of your business. If you love to learn and want to find out how you can rev up your business, join us. Welcome to another episode of Rev Up Your Business. Today I have with me Marte Belisle, and she is the president and owner of SommEvents. You'll notice there's 2 M's in the name, and the Somme is actually a take, I believe, on sommelier, because Marte does all things. Now I'm talking all things wine, spirits, and corporate gifting. And she has a passion for travel and wine. So she spent the last 3 decades studying wines around the world. I think this is going to be a great episode. Along the way, she has gone back to school to be formally trained. SommEvents is not Marta's first business, but certainly that's the one she is passionate about. She loves to coordinate events and select wines and food pairings, creating new ways of presenting wines to people. Niagara is the region she has come to know in depth over the last 20 years. And although she makes her base there, no wine region is foreign to her. She's using all of her knowledge. She helps companies with clients' retention strategies, team building, and gift programs using wine. So welcome, Marte.
Well, thank you, Hilda. It is such a pleasure to be here with you today. It is always nice to reconnect.
It is nice to reconnect. We want to focus today's session on really understanding the idea of corporate gifting, and in your case, using wine as that. So tell us a little bit more about your business and why you got into it.
Well, why I got into it is sometimes an interesting story. At the tender age of 17, I was introduced to the Bordeaux region in France. And I'm not sure if I first fell in love with the wine or with the chateaus, but I was quite impressed with both. And right then and there, at 17 years old, I decided I would travel the world to learn more about wine. I thought it would be a great way to visit the world. And with that in mind, it was always an education. And that's the one thing about wine is you never stop learning. There is always something new to learn, to taste, and to try. So it's always fascinating. And then I proceeded to then travel all over the world. I've been as far as Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, among many other places, to taste wines and really understand what makes their wines for those particular regions taste the way that they do. And of course, it has everything to do about terroir, which I could talk about for about an hour, but I won't. And so it's a passion for me to pair wines with food, to present wines. And that's what we do when we do client retention or team building events. And then, of course, then there's the gift. And, the gifting is all about representing your brand with the right wine. So there's some good research that goes into it. We don't use the least expensive wine available on the market, but we always use wines that are unique in the sense that you can't find these wines in retail stores. So we always have something new to present to you.
I love how you started at the tender age of 17, and I don't even think that's the drinking age at that time, but somehow appreciated the wine and then combining it with the love of travel. No wine is with any wine is within your reach, and you can write off it in your business, which I think is just a great combination. You used a word that I'm not familiar with, but I think just helping people appreciate that a wine bottle of wine is not the same in South Africa as it might be in Australia, as it might be in a certain region within it. And I believe you used the word, which I'm not familiar with, that really helps people understand the soil and the richness of the area. So do you want to elaborate a little bit on that? Because a bottle of wine is not a bottle of wine.
Yeah, a bottle of wine from one place is not the same as a bottle of wine from another place. And I think one of the greatest examples of that is Malbec from Argentina and Malbec from France, which is known as Cahors, because that is the region where it's grown. But it's all about where the grape is grown, what kind of soil, kind of sun exposure, what kind of wind, how much rain did it get, how much sun did it get, all of those things. And when we're talking about the soil that the grape is grown in, we're not talking about just the soil you can dig up with your hands and plant a bulb or a plant in it. It's everything that makes up the soil underneath, all the parts that we never get to see unless you're excavating. And all of that plays a big, big part on developing the particular taste of that region. So here in the Niagara region, we have very different soil on the Beamsville Bench, also known as the Benchland, versus Niagara on the Lake. The wines are very, very different. Niagara on the Lake is sandy, whereas on the Benchland or along the escarpment, it's rocky soil. It's got a lot more rock formation. So very different tastes. And that's what I went and discovered around the world. What are those tastes? What makes each region different? And it can be as close as the difference between Niagara on the Lake and Beamsville, which is not very far. They're at the most a half an hour apart.
I think as I was growing up, I never appreciated that wine or food could be so different. I remember watching a movie and they were looking for the truffles in their region. And it didn't, you couldn't buy it in New York because it would taste different. And that dish that they were creating would be different in, you know, a little village in south of France than it would be in New York, getting it from somebody local in New York. And I thought, wow. And it gets back to that. It is a combination of sun, soil, whether the drainage of the water is on a hill or not, and the minerals. And so I appreciate that. What I want to do is help business owners and even HR professionals, because we often will buy gifts for our clients, our staff, or for, to have at an event. And I want to talk a little bit more about that. One of your sayings is spread the joy. And I think when you're trying to think about doing a corporate gifting or an event, you are spreading the joy. So tell us a little bit more about why we should open up our pocketbooks to spend money to spread this joy.
Well, I think one of the best ways I can explain it is to tell you the story of one of my clients. So this client came to me and they would get a lot of their business through referrals, and they wanted to say thank you to those referral sources. And at the time, they were giving gift cards for $50 at places like Starbucks and other places like that. And so I took that budget and we created a wooden box with their logo etched in it. We put in a nice bottle of wine, and I mean nice bottle of wine. So it's not, it's not a $10, $12 bottle of wine. And with it, we put in a tasting note so that the recipient would know what to expect out of the bottle and what to have it with. So what kind of meal should they have it with? Or is it a sipping wine to have for cocktails? And so we give a full description of the wine. And so we prepared these boxes for this client. And I got a phone call from the managing director after they started giving out the boxes. And it was a woman, and she said, I can't believe the phone calls we are getting from our referral sources. They are so excited about receiving these wine bottles in a beautiful box. And they're all telling me they're going to keep the box.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
I think that story says it all. You want to make an impression that people will cherish, will have a memory of, will think of you with a smile on their face.
Yeah.
Maybe it gave somebody the excuse to say to their spouse, let's prepare a really nice meal and have this bottle of wine. Or let's sit down with a charcuterie tray and open this bottle of wine and share that moment together and say, cheers and thank you to the person who sent it to us.
Yeah.
And of course, with the box with the name of the client on it, how can you forget them, right? So it's a keepsake as well as creating some fabulous memories for those people that you want to say thank you to.
And I think it is memories that stick. And that's why they're a memory, right? Because if you gave me the $50 Starbucks, I would go and I would have 3 cups of coffee or hot chocolate or whatnot. Or I'd have 2 or 3 friends and I'd say, hey, let me pay today. But I would not associate that gift, that beautiful $50 gift, with that client, right? It wouldn't be that kind of memory, but a box with the company's logo on it, it just has a better way of sticking. When I go to weddings, my husband and I are very adamant that we do not want to give money because nobody remembers that you gave money. Yet I still use the pots and pans from my wedding, as much as they're outdated colors because stainless steel is in now. But I still remember who gave that to me. And then the years of things that I've cooked in that. So memories do make a difference. Memories do make a difference. And thank you for sharing that example because it just shows how it's not just about putting stuff in a bag of nice wine and giving it to a client. You elevate that giving into a memory.
I believe recognizing those people who help you along the way, those great clients, because we always want some more of those great clients to work with. I say maybe do it less often, but do something that'll be really memorable.
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
Thank you for sharing that, because I like people who listen to my podcasts or view it know the concept that I have of rev up. And rev up, the V stands for valued. And when you make a person feel valued, then it escalates the relationship. It escalates the value that you give to them. So I love this gift giving. If I was a business owner, somebody in HR, and I'm thinking, okay, we need to do something, what are some of the things that we should be considering when we're deciding what kind of gift it might be and what kind of vendor might we want to use?
Well, I think that one of the really important thing is try to stick to your budget as much as possible. I think that's really important. And again, that's why I say do less or not as often, but try to keep within your budget. So you want to work with somebody who has that in mind, who will keep that in mind, who also may possibly give you some other options. I think a vendor who is willing to customize for you is really, really important when it comes to gifting. People receive gifts. I'm going to say this. People receive gifts for some events, and sometimes they don't even know what company sent it to them because it's not about some events. It's about the brand that we are representing or that we are presenting. So I think that that's really important, so that your vendor wants to work and work with the details that you need to create that impact that you want. Those are the things that I would definitely take a look at. And if you're talking about wine, you really want to talk to somebody who really knows wine and understands the value and the types of wines that you can get for the dollar amount that you want to spend.
So say I want to do wine then. What is a reasonable budget that I could afford and say, yeah, I gotta have March. I gotta have her. So can I afford it? What would you say that starter price range and a middle price range to show gratitude might be?
So we can do a box. It may not be it won't be a wooden box, but we have beautiful black lacquer boxes that we can put your name on it, and follow the guidelines of your brand colors, and do a presentation from anywhere. Today, post COVID, with the inflation that we're dealing with, realistically, $60 and up.
Okay, $60 and up, but then there's also the cost of couriering and shipping it to a company.
Yeah, we never know where we're shipping
Yeah,
to, so
yeah,
that we
yeah.
can't.
So I just want to make sure people understand that. But
Now, the other thing that we do, Hilda, is we will prepare all the boxes and bring it to the client, and they can distribute it. Sometimes they want their salespeople to go and hand it to the client themselves. It's a great touch point. Sometimes they wait for the client to come into the office for whatever reason. So there's a lot of ways of dealing with that.
I love how you customize it so that it reflects the client's company. So you said, okay, we'll put your logo on it, right? So it comes from that, like from People Bright in my case. What would you put a price tag on that value of gratitude? How do you help people understand that this is worth doing?
Oh, that's a big question. I guess one of the best way I can explain it, and the way I have explained it to some of my customers, is: do you want more of those good clients? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, who doesn't want to work with a great client, right? I love working with great clients. And I want to keep them, and I want to keep working with people just like that. And so when you take the time, uh, and I'm not saying of putting the package together, but of thinking about it and saying, okay, we're going to do this, then you're going to attract more of those really great clients that you want. What you put out there in the and whatever you put out, you usually get back. So if you put out kindness and appreciation, you will get that back. You will start surrounding yourself with people who believe in the same thing, and you will attract more of those people. You'll also get people talking about you as well. And that's a good thing. When they're talking about you in a sense of saying, geez, I really feel good about working with this company. Whether they report about the gift or not, it doesn't matter. If you make people feel good, they will come back to you and they will refer you.
So, gift of wine, gift of food, gift of what? What do you think are some of the options? And I'm thinking of some of people who, for religious reasons, like Muslims, you don't give wine, right? And how do you make sure you don't make that kind of faux pas by thinking you're giving this great gift and they can't? I'm allergic to red wine. Um,
Right?
but I've never met a Chardonnay I haven't liked. And I think you said, Hilda, it's the oaky taste that you love. I said, yes, that's that richness. But I'm so sensitive to red wine now that in cooking, I can't, I will have reactions from it. So we went to Spain recently, and I wrote down, thanks to Google, I put it on my little notebook to show when I'm in a restaurant, allergies. And we have allergies to nuts, and I put red wine, not cooking. And so they see it. And I forgot where I was. I was in a Middle Eastern restaurant, and they say, we don't use wine in cooking. I thought, oh, right. I forgot. I'm safe here. Okay, I will take that now. That red meat that's braised in wine. I will take that now, rather than saying, no, you're not. Don't touch that, Hilda.
Exactly. Well, we do customize our packages, and we do have non-alcoholic options to our packages. And sometimes we'll just put together a package of food products and we stay away from things like pork and things like that, because for some people that's not something that they eat. So we can put together even a food package to substitute for some people where you don't want to give wine or anything alcoholic. So we have a number of ways of dealing with it: either non-alcoholic wine or just a food box rather than a wine box.
We talked about corporate events, and I have my thoughts on a corporate event. An event that I want to training event that I want to do in the spring coming up, with really helping people become more confident in their selves. And we talked about this, and you mentioned the fact that uh, doing an event after hours for networking, and wine might be a good idea. So let's expound on that a little bit more.
Yeah, well, you know, wine is a great way to get people to come and join you because everybody either wants to learn about wine or wants to taste it at least. And so it's a great attraction. And then we always make our events a little bit educational. People are going to learn something about the wine because, first of all, we will go and acquire some wines that are not your usual, it's not something that you might normally pick up. And so we take care to select wines that are not maybe the most popular. So I always say we never serve Cabernet Sauvignon and we never serve Pinot Grigio because everybody knows those wines. There's nothing wrong with them. They're great wines. But I'm going to introduce you to wines that you've never had before. So, for example, you mentioned you were in Spain. So my first thought is a great white wine from Spain is a Torontes. It's a great varietal. I really like it. So we're going to introduce you to wines that you may never have tasted before. And we find that no matter how much or how little you know about wine, you will always learn something from one of our wine experiences. So it's always a fun thing to do. And the way people bond over wine is like nothing else that I've seen, other than maybe a cooking class in Italy. Uh, long ways to go. But other than that, whenever I see people tasting wine, the conversations that grow out of that afterwards, and people who may not have or thought that they had nothing in common will all of a sudden have a particular wine in common, and that just starts a whole conversation. And that's where using wine or wine events is the big benefit for a lot of businesses because it gets people talking, and that's what you want. You want to create that opportunity to talk, to learn more about each other, and to bond.
Cool. And just getting back, what made you decide to purchase wines that are unique and different? Because many of us go to LCBO and we pick a wine and we try it out, but you're saying that you won't find this in the retail stores. So I don't know if you're just meaning retail stores now, because in Ontario we can actually buy it in a store, whereas in Montreal you've been able to buy it for I don't know how long, but I still remember as a kid my parents had a grocery store and we had friends in Montreal and there was wine and beer on the grocery store shelves, and we were not allowed to until more recently. Tell us more about how you got into that, and how do you find that right wine for an event?
So, oh, that's okay. You've just asked a real loaded question there, Heather.
Sorry.
Let me start where at the first thing that I can think of. So, one of the reasons why I always say the wines are not available in retail stores is because we work right across the country and into the US. So, rather than saying LCBO, I may be talking to somebody who's in Vancouver,
Mm-hmm.
somewhere in the States, in the Maritimes. So, I always say the retail stores. So, yes, and the wines that we work with are private imports. And I can't tell you where I get them because that's trade secret.
I respect that, and I'm sure my listeners and viewers respect that too.
And so it's having worked in the wine industry and having learned so much about wine over the years, that helps me select what we call a mid-palate wine, which means that it will appeal to the majority of people. And that's really, really important. I've also, with my training of, going back to school and having traveled around the world to learn about wine and taste wines, um, I've been able to learn, and for some reason, I have a great memory of which wine tastes like what. and what region that I preferred that particular grape varietal from. And so these are imprints in my memory that are always there, and I can always pull up what I can expect from a wine. I've also learned over time and experience when a wine is well crafted, well made. It may not be my favorite wine. It may not be something I would reach for at the end of a day, but I can tell you if it's been well made or not. So all of that knowledge that I have gathered over many, many years and drinking many, many bottles of wine, not all at once, it gives me that knowledge so that I can guide my clients. And again, going into the holiday season, we've been working some programs for some clients, and I was asked that question, like, how do you know that our clients are going to like these wines?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
that is my experience speaking. And that's where I go and use all of that knowledge that I've acquired over many, many years. And that I keep acquiring because it's something you're always learning, you're always tasting new wines. And I know how to select wine. And I think it's just a little bit of a gift.
What a joy and a gift. And to know that you started that idea at 17 years of age,
Yeah.
that is impressive. That is impressive. Any tips and strategies that you would suggest to my listeners and viewers?
Well, tips and strategies about wine selection or
Anything.
any.
Like, I mean, I've asked some questions, but you're probably saying, Hilda, I think they could benefit from knowing about this. So give us some benefits about knowing about what you know to help us.
Okay, I'm going to give you a tip that I find people are really, really enjoying and are telling me they're learning a lot about wine. And that is joining us once a month on Wine Wednesday. So the third Wednesday of every month, we have a free online wine tasting. We tell you exactly which wine to pick up at the retail store. And we do pick wines that you can pick up across the country. And then we taste it together. And it's just amazing how people learn about wine. The big thing that they learn about is they may be tasting a grape varietal that they've never had before, and they find out that they like it. Then when they go back to their liquor store, they can say, oh, I like a wine from this region, or I like this type of wine.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the biggest thing, is to experiment, taste different things, take the time to slowly taste, and then say, what is it that I like? Oh, I like this wine. Okay, is it the grape varietal? Is it the region? Is it a combination of both? So there's some learning to be done there all the time. So
That
I
sounds good.
encourage everybody to join us for Wine Wednesday, like I said, the third Wednesday of the month. And it's for an hour from 5:30 to 6:30 Toronto time, and learn a little bit about wine. And you will find that going to your local liquor store is a whole new experience after you've joined us for a few of those. And it's also one of the ways that I often introduce our services to corporates who are thinking of doing either a team building or a client retention program. I often invite them to come to a Wine Wednesday so they can see us in action and see how it's not intimidating, and it's friendly and it's fun and it's educational all at once. So that would be my number one tip to share.
Now, how do people sign up for this? Where will they go?
Well, they go to our website at SommEvents.com, and that's spelled SOMM events.com, and sign up to receive our newsletter, and you will get the information for Wine Wednesday and which wine to pick up, and then the link to join us for a Zoom call.
That sounds fun. Yeah, I think, when you're first starting out and drinking, you learn from friends. And I remember some very cheap bottles of wine that I had in the early days. And then you get a little bit more refined, and you get an opportunity to go to a wine tasting. I still remember, and this is how you and I met, Mart, that I was part of a group called Grow Your Biz, and we were talking fondly about Mark Hashi, who was the manager for the east part of Canada, and Barb Mowat is for the west part and the founder of Grow Your Biz. And Marg organized a wine tasting day. We got on a bus that we picked up at some mall, and then you escorted us around Niagara region and did some wine tasting, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience to learn how to appreciate wine. And I loved how you said earlier, when you help a company select a wine, you're looking for the mid palate. So where many people would more likely say this is okay, as opposed to only, a wine connoisseur might appreciate the high notes of one other bottle of wine, whereas other people say, oh, that's not for me, right? So I love what you're sharing with us here. Any other tips? Like, I love this Wine Wednesday tip. Any others that you want to share before we close?
Okay, a couple of really quick ones is never hesitate to help somebody and never hesitate to ask for help. And so, on that note, when you go to your local liquor store, I'm going to speak about the LCBO in particular. The SAQ in Quebec is the same way. Um, there's usually a wine consultant. Now, they're not on all the time, but you can ask, who's your wine consultant in the store? And is that wine consultant here now, whenever you go in? If not, keep note of the name and ask for that person again. The wine consultants have really been trained and they have tasted a lot of wines. They may not be sommeliers, but they've had a lot of good training and they will be able to guide you very, very well. If you say, I'm preparing a meal, it's this type of a dish, and I want a wine to go with it, what do you recommend? If you're talking to the wine expert in the store, you will get some great recommendations. And never be afraid to mention what your budget is, because of course, anybody will enjoy a wine at $150 a bottle. But there are some great wines to be had in the 20s and 30s, and you'd never be embarrassed to present one of those wines. So don't be afraid to ask for help.
So, um, how do people get a hold of you? And is there something that you want to share that's an opportunity for us to get to know you better or to know wines better?
Well, always feel free to reach out to me through our website, SommEvents.com, and I'll spell that again, SOMM. Yes, it is short for sommelier. SOMM events with an S at the end.com. And there's a contact us form there. That's probably the easiest. You can reach me on LinkedIn as SommEvents. You can find us on Instagram and on Facebook as well, all under the name of SommEvents. Reach out on any of those platforms and I will respond to you. If it's a quick question, that's great. But if you want to have a conversation about a team building event, a client retention, or a gifting program, I'm happy to spend whatever amount of time it takes, the 20, 30, 40 minutes, and talk to you some more about it in detail and send you more information. So again, the best way to reach me is through our website, SommEvents.com, and on the contact us page, and be happy to help you out as much as I can.
Well, I want to thank you very much, Marte, for really opening our eyes to wine. I think we all, I'm sorry, I'm visualizing my Chardonnay in my hand, sipping it as we have been speaking this whole time. So I love that spread the joy and the memories and giving us some tips and strategies about the value of corporate giving, the value of choosing wine as that possibility, and or creating events where wine is involved in pairing with food. We all love a sense of community, and I think food and wine or other beverages really bring people together. So thanks for joining us today and sharing your expert sommelier experiences.
Thank you, Hilda. It's been a real pleasure to speak with you today.
Thank you. And so as you're thinking of the holiday season, think of, possibly having a bottle of wine as a gift. Certainly that's been going on in my head, thinking, okay, we'll have to have a conversation after this. And to those of you who have listened and or viewed my podcast, thank you very much for taking the time and learning. If you love this story, give it a thumbs up and put something in the comment section. And if you want to hear more stories of tips and strategies of experts in the field as you build a business, as you're part of an organization as an HR professional helping build a successful business, do subscribe and check out some of the exciting podcasts and guests that I have. Have a great day and rev up your business. Thank you for tuning in to Rev Up Your Business with Hilda Gann. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our podcast on YouTube and Spotify to stay up to date with all of our latest episodes. For more HR tips, strategies, and to learn how you can create a people-centric workplace, visit our website at peoplebrightconsulting.com.